This is the true side of what's happened to this community. And we're all a living testament. We are here, and we are going to tell this story for everyone to hear.
To me, it's one of the darkest days for myself to the whole crisis of 1990. It was a terrible day.
Nobody ever expected that to happen.
Here we are, car's all busted. I'm full of blood. My daughter's full of blood. And I'm carrying my daughter.
I don't know what I'd do if it happened again to one of my family. But I'm scared that I think it's gonna happen again to me.
The Canadian government, they have troops. Our strength comes from our spirituality. As Oklahoma people, we only have each other to help each other. That's what gives us the power.
This is CKRK 103.7 FM in Kahnawake.
When a person asks me where I'm from, I'll say Kahnawake, and they'll be like, "Where's that?" You know, it's like they don't know where we are. We're not recognized. If you say, "Oh, well, it's just outside of Montreal," they'll go, "Oh, okay." Yeah.
Do you think it's a beautiful place here?
Yeah, I do find it a very beautiful place in Kahnawake.
I sincerely love this community. I love the people in it. I have a son who's growing up here, so my interests are for the next generations, and that's who I feel is being targeted for full assimilation, and I will try my hardest to prevent that and to remain and keep our identity as a distinct people.
En 1716, des groupes d'Iroquois viennent s'installer dans la seigneurie de Sault-Saint-Louis, sur la rive sud du fleuve Saint-Laurent, en face des rapides de la Chine. Ils appellent leur village Kahnawake. Cette seigneurie avait été accordée aux Jésuites expressément pour que les Iroquois s'y installent. La cour de France croyait que les Jésuites s'attireraient la loyauté des Iroquois une fois qu'ils seraient convertis. La seigneurie s'étend sur près de 65 000 carrés, de la prairie à Châteauguay. Les Jésuites présumaient que le groupe d'Iroquois qui s'y installait s'était entièrement converti à la religion catholique. Mais les gens n'avaient pas abandonné leur tradition de la longue maison. Ils continuaient d'appartenir à un système de clans qui en comptait 3. Le clan du loup, les éclaireurs. Le clan de l'ours, les gardiens de la médecine. Le clan de la tortue, les gardiens de la sagesse. Au cours des années, les Jésuites concédèrent plusieurs terres de la seigneurie de Sault-Saint-Louis à des colons canadiens français, et les Iroquois perdirent près de 45 000 carrés de terre. Le reste des terres de la seigneurie représente 19 000 carrés et demi.
In the lands we're claiming, we're not going to turn around and move anybody. Our reserves consist of 12,532 acres. We're going to argue with the provincial government and the federal government to pay some kind of compensation for the loss of the lands. So that's 45 and a half square miles that we got to go dig up and say, hey, this belongs to us.
Du haut des airs, on peut voir aujourd'hui que l'érosion du territoire Mohawk continue. Chaque jour, environ 65 000 véhicules traversent la réserve. Les trains y passent et sur la voie maritime, le trafic est chaque jour intermittent. En 1990, les Mohawks de Kahnawake, 70 km à l'ouest de Montréal, près du lac des Deux-Montagnes, dressent des barricades pour empêcher la destruction d'un secteur sacré qu'ils appellent la Pinède. Des promoteurs immobiliers veulent le passer au bulldozer pour construire des immeubles en copropriété et agrandir un terrain de golf.
We're tired of getting pushed around. What's all out there belongs to us to begin with. What gives them the right to say that's theirs? Plus, like when it all started over, it's a 9-hole golf course. Our people are buried there.
C'est un moment décisif pour le peuple Mohawk. On ne leur prendra plus leur territoire. Près de 1000 policiers sont envoyés à Kahnawake. Une mesure qui évite au gouvernement de prendre ses responsabilités en matière de droits territoriaux. Pour soutenir leurs frères et leurs sœurs de Kahnawake, les Mohawks de Kahnawake bloquent le pont Mercier et toutes les entrées de leur réserve. Les banlieusards qui empruntent normalement le pont doivent maintenant faire de longs détours. Des tranchées, des barricades et de nombreux autres obstacles sont créés pour bloquer l'accès à la communauté. Des warriors de plusieurs autres nations viennent prêter leur soutien et sont prêts à donner leur vie, si nécessaire.
My role was cooking and feeding the men that were at the blockade. I think we cooked for 125 men per day, 3 meals a day. And we were getting our food from Chateauguay. Just one night, I think we made 35 pots of coffee. Well, we had different shifts we were on. I was there all the time, and I used to sleep on the floor.
There was a lot of young people here where they needed milk and stuff like that, and yet these people on the other side says no. I mean, there's a lot of secret ways that people came in and delivered other things that we needed.
They were bringing it through the woods at night, hiding.
There was a safe house where some of our people could go to be taken care of if they got caught on the outside, you know, trying to get out and get food. They were keeping an eye out for patrol. They were letting our people know when it was safe to come. I know even some people who were running through the bushes to bring medical supplies and food who were beaten, attacked, harassed. They had phone calls. They were calling them Indian lovers.
Like towards the end, there was trucks that came in. Everybody got together to help feed one another.
We all had to go and, you know, every morning at the Cattery Hall, and you were only allowed maybe half a loaf of bread, maybe 6 eggs. It was difficult. Everybody was kind of close and pitching in and doing their share.
They want to start the Indians out, but they couldn't do it. We survived, and we survived this one too.
We tried to convince the government that these people had to be fed, one way or the other. How? It was up to them to decide. Was it through special trucks going, being controlled to avoid any kind of arms or all kinds of things being smuggled around to support the families over there? I mean, we were not in war. I think the population felt bad about them. They were not pleased with these people behind the barricades. Created a larger effect when the population was behind this whole issue because of the land claims. But I don't know if the white citizens understood that.
We point out that there are 3 preconditions that the Government of Canada, Quebec, have acknowledged and signed. People be allowed to come and go, and that food and medical supplies be allowed to come into our community. Those things have not been met. We feel that the Quebec government, the federal government, has not respected that agreement. They have not done anything to ensure that the supplies enter our communities, both here and in Kahnawake.
Après une semaine de négociations, le gouvernement a donc décidé de rompre les négociations avec les interlocuteurs en cause. Et en rompant les négociations, les préconditions qui étaient attachées à ces négociations deviennent caduques.
Une autre précondition n'a pas été respectée. Le 27 août, le premier ministre de la province de Québec, Robert Bourassa, demande aux observateurs internationaux de quitter les lieux. Les représentants de l'Église unie du Canada et de la Commission des droits de la personne du Québec prennent l'initiative de les remplacer.
Police allowed the mob to prevent me from bringing that food in.
Ça, c'est pas correct.
Ils vont venir dire après ça, c'est qu'il faut pas venir, il faut lui donner le terrain, il faut tout lui donner.
We were not pleased politically. We were not pleased as far as the citizens of Chattagee were concerned. Here in Chattagee, we were the ones that were kind of hostages of the situation.
It wasn't like the average person who would be at the barricades nightly, burning the effigies and, calling for the army to come in. Instead of taking a more calm approach and saying, look, we'll sit down and we'll try to work this situation out, the mayor very quickly reacted to take a radical position. Some of the merchants called for, severe action to be taken without thinking of how, in some instances, Kahnawake had supported them to become what they were. And that was a betrayal.
Les résidents de Châteauguay qui ont à emprunter le pont Mercier sont furieux de le voir bloqué. Ils se rassemblent par milliers aux barricades policières et chahutent pendant des heures, le jour comme la nuit. Les commerces locaux perdent des clients et des milliers de dollars. La population de Kahnawake compte plus de 7500 personnes et la plupart d'entre elles font toutes leurs affaires à Châteauguay.
All these incidents with our people, with all the riots that have gone on, the yelling and the screaming has all been incited by the bad press, by the federal and provincial government and the terrible things they've said about the people of Kahnawake and Kahnawake and Mohawk people in general, terrorism and everything else.
But the people of Chattagee should realize that Mohawks and Indians of Canada, United States, have been inconvenienced for hundreds of years. We are not trying to take their armored personnel carriers. We're not trying to take their country. They're trying to take our country. They've already taken all of our country. We are here, and we're going to stay here.
And if you see those armored personnel carriers rolling in your direction, what are you going to do?
I'll try not to get run over.
Lots of rumors were flying around that the possibility of the army coming into Kahnawake, and people were getting very frightened. Politically, there wasn't very much that we could do because of the fact that our leaders were trying to negotiate a settlement with the Quebec government. And at the time, the army was already here, but they were on the outskirts of the community.
Any place they put a man, you face them with a man. Right? No big deal. You don't have to sit up and stand up and be at attention, all this shit. You relax. Let them stand.
À peine 20 ans après la fondation de Montréal, en mars 1665, à propos des Iroquois, le roi Louis XIV écrit un message à son intendant Jean Talon, où il demande
de leur porter la guerre, jusque dans leur foyer, pour les exterminer entièrement.
L'année suivante, Rémy de Courcelles et 1500 hommes envahissent 4 villages iroquois. Ils brûlent tout, détruisent la nourriture et confisquent le territoire au nom du roi de France. Les Iroquois ont été dépossédés de leur territoire à Montréal et dans la région du fleuve Saint-Laurent. Mais ils ne se laissent jamais abattre.
Many of our forefathers and our ancestors have died for the same thing, for the same cause. We're here in protection of our people and our land. Look at us. Should we die because of a 9-hole golf course?
L'armée se prépare à entrer à Kahnawake et avance sur Kanesatake. Les leaders ont des plans d'évacuation pour les enfants et les aînés. Ils craignent une fusillade entre l'armée et les gens qui refusent de laisser fouiller leur maison.
My sister works at the hospital and she called. She asked me if I was going to go and I said no. She said the hospital was getting ready and they were making sections. If there was fighting, those that would be hurt and those that would be dead. And she said, do you really want your children to see that, Yvonne? She said, if you can leave and not let them see it. And she more or less talked me into it.
I was in contact with our council members and I cautioned them about declaring an emergency situation in the community. Because the civil authorities lose complete control. And that leaves the door open to the province and the federal government, the army and police forces to come in.
It was decided that the Mercier Bridge would be the best place because there were little or no people there. One of the key parts was that our peacekeepers would lead the entourage across the bridge. They would be helped through to get off the Mercier Bridge, through the Whiskey Trench and onto wherever they needed to go.
The older people were really worried about everybody else that would be left here within the community. They were really concerned that the army was going to come in, there was going to be shots fired, if they came back, there would probably be hardly anything left within the community itself if there was a fight.
Tout à l'heure, ça va tout se remplir, ça, ici. Ça, c'est à part de ceux qui font la vérification des quais en direction de la Chine, d'Arval, etc. Nous qui travaillons depuis 3 semaines sur cette affaire-là, puis que les Indiens se permettent d'arrêter de nous autres, puis de traverser. Ça dépasse les bornes. C'est fini. C'est fini! Ça soit clair et net. On est prêts!
My husband was traveling back and forth to work. We had a boat at the time, and he'd bring back bread and milk and eggs and whatever anybody needed, and he'd shop for everybody, and then at night we would distribute it, to our neighbors or our family or whoever needed anything. One morning he went to work and he went to dock his boat. There was a crowd there and they start throwing stones at him.
Quand les Mohawks quittent la réserve, on les humilie et on tente par tous les moyens de les dépouiller de leur dignité.
I'm going with my daughter. I'm going with my daughter.
Pour toute urgence médicale, Il faut s'attendre à bien des ennuis lorsqu'une ambulance doit traverser le pont Mercier.
I don't deal in Chateauguay because of the way they treated my son. There was a little boy about 12 years old that broke his leg, and the paramedics went to the hospital in Chateauguay, and when they had to go through a police barrier in Chateauguay, here comes about 15 men. They're trying to tip over the ambulance. Now why? And my son was in the ambulance.
Some hoodlums here, they was yelling, let him die, let him die. Is this human being? I was in the war 6 years. We respect the Red Cross all over the world. But people, they said ambulance is not the Red Cross. What is ambulance then?
Some police were just like this. They didn't do nothing. But some turn around and they're thinking of what is right and what is wrong, and they say, hey, it's an ambulance, let them go.
And I started my contractions about 3 in the morning. And when she came out, I felt a rip. At the same time, she tried to pull on the placenta for it to come out, and it wouldn't come out. So they called the ambulance. The ambulance had gotten there at about maybe 6 o'clock. We got over the bridge to the other side, and once we got there, the other ambulance was like a few ways down the road. So they got their stretcher out and they came up and they met us and they put me on it, and they said that my husband wasn't allowed to come. They asked if one of the paramedics from our ambulance go over with me, and they said, no, she can't go with you. We went maybe not even like a foot, and they had pulled us over. All I know was the ambulance driver had gotten out of the car, out of the ambulance. He opened the door, and there was these 2 men standing there. They just looked at me, and they said, okay, and they closed the door. And then we started to go again, and then 2 minutes after, it was like, he got out of the car again, he opened the gate. Well, this man has to see, so that was 3 men now that have to see. He closed the door, we got ready to pull out again. It didn't happen. He got back out. He had to open the doors back. Once he had opened the door back, there was 4 standing there. There was three men and 1 woman. They just want to see because they think that maybe I have a firearm or something. At 9 o'clock, we got to the hospital. I think they were saying that it was 1/3 of my blood that I had lost.
L'armée a reçu les ordres de marcher sur Kahnawake et Kahnawake. Alors que l'armée avance, Kahnawake décide d'exécuter son plan d'évacuation.
I don't know, they were supposed to raid Kahnawake or something. That's when they took us, huh? And then because I was old, I had to go. I didn't want to go, but I had to go.
We took my mother-in-law, who was 86, and my uncle, which lived across the street from me, was 74, and my son, which was 10 years old. I had asked them if they would go because I was scared for them because we had heard that the army was coming in.
It was my grandson's birthday. He was going to be 1 year old, and we got a call that they were going to have a caravan to leave town. My mother was 77 and my father was 81. My daughter changed her mind. She says, "No, I can't go." So she put her baby in my car.
There was between 50 and 75 vehicles that were gathered to go across. They were stopped by the SQ. At that point, they were told by the officer in charge, that particular checkpoint, that everyone, every man, woman, and child would have to be checked. The vehicles would have to be checked before they're allowed to go through.
So I asked again, what's going on? Well, they says we have to provide you with better security in order to go through.
When we left, he watched from the roof of the house with binoculars, and he knew that something was going on because the cars were stopped.
They came to every vehicle. They searched the trunk, the underneath the seat. I mean, at one point they tried to get my father out. My father at the time was 78 and my mother was 69. I mean, he was about 90 pounds. He was sick. He was so weak he could barely move his legs. And the SQ officer was, pushing him in the seat. I kept saying, "We have nothing. What are you looking for?" And I guess they thought we had weapons or something. I really don't know.
They looked in the trunk. I asked them, "What are you looking for?" And they said, "Well, we just want to make sure, that you're not taking anybody out or something out or weapons out." Or I said, "I don't even own a weapon. Why would I be taking anything out?"
I felt very bad for the elders that were among us on the bridge because some were getting sick. But what can you find when you have children and elders in a car?
I was 6 years old. It was me, my little sister, my older sister, my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother. They stopped us on the bridge to start searching all our stuff, and they had us there for 3 hours. I didn't know what was going on. They just told me that we were going away for a little while.
They weren't carrying firearms. They weren't carrying any of this stuff, and that on-the-spot check was done by our people. But unfortunately, that wasn't good enough.
So I let the kids out, and they would come and they'd yell at you, "Get them in the car, put them back in, you're not allowed, you don't get out of your car." And then we started to argue. We said, "These kids have to get out, these people. It was just too hot in the cars." I had my mother with me. My mother was maybe 70. It was a beautiful summer that summer.
I was really upset and heartbroken for having to leave. My husband gave me a paper telling me not to read this paper until I was off and out of the reserve. And it was his will. And I was crying. One SQ was very nice about it. He came and he said, "Look, ma'am," he said, "I'm sorry. I really don't want to be here, but this is my job." And he held me and he comforted me. He asked me if I was, okay, and just to be strong, keep my head up and take care of my son.
When they first arrived at that point, there wasn't anybody on the other side of the bridge, meaning the north side. That one particular area was under construction. It was all dug up. The officer in charge of us spoke with the officer in charge of the SQ because he was concerned for the safety of the people, with the people out there. And he said there wouldn't be any problem. They had 2 bus loads. They were all full of RCMP, standing by, riot equipped.
On était au restaurant, on a entendu dire qu'ils laissaient passer les autochtones sur le pont. Fait qu'on a décidé d'aller voir ça. C'était pas plus compliqué que ça.
La police a reçu les ordres de n'arrêter personne. Sa responsabilité est d'empêcher la foule d'atteindre les voitures et de leur bloquer le passage sur le pont.
We're sitting in the car waiting. My great-grandmother was about 92, and my grandmother, I'm not sure of her age at the time. And I was 18. There was hundreds of people on the other side now, calling us down, yelling at us, calling us savages, and saying stuff in English and French. It wasn't nice.
At the time, there was myself, my daughter Sarah, she was 18 months, her father, and our babysitter. And we saw all the people on the other side waiting, and we also heard rumors of conversation on the French radio station to entice people to come over and to harass us in many different ways.
I got out of my car and I went and talked to a peacekeeper. I said, "I can't go." I was like drained. It was hot, and I had no more energy. So then he said, "Get in your car, they're going."
Finally, after the crowd really built up to, say, 2,000 or 3,000 people out there, all of a sudden the SQ says it's okay to go. You just can leave.
Then I started to get nervous, but there was no way to turn back at this point. The delay was incredible. We were on top of the bridge at quite a height. 90-degree weather. They assured us after 2 checks of every car that everything was okay. Keep your windows up and just keep going and don't stop for anything.
Don't stop for anything. And I said to him, my God, there's people, you could see them on the banks. I said, what if somebody fell and run them over and just keep on going, don't stop for nothing.
It was all lined with police all the way up, and they were like screaming at you, go faster, go faster. And they kept waving you through and just waving. I saw a policeman standing in front of somebody with a pile of rocks and just step aside when I went through and just let them throw them.
Everybody started following, and stones, sticks, bricks, boulders, thrown from all angles. Your right, your left, from a walkway on top. They're just throwing and throwing. A couple of rocks hit the car. I started getting nervous. My grandmother was really nervous and she was driving. It was bad.
And you could see the people waiting with piles of rocks. Well, they had all their ammunition ready, and there was so many people. There was hundreds of people, just a big crowd.
Des jeunes qui ont garoché des roches, qui ont lapidé. C'est fort probable que c'était la faute de la police provinciale. Il aurait dû les voir qui étaient sur le tas de roches.
These people started to pick up rocks and they started throwing them. And one of the policemen was, trying to stop them. He was like one, and all the rest of the police were way up on the bridge part, on the abutment part. So as we went through, one big rock hit my son's car on the back, and a couple of smaller ones, and it broke like the back window, and it left a big dent in there. I could look in the rearview mirror, and all I could see is the dust as we were going through.
The SQs, they were just standing there. They were watching. They had their backs to the people, and just watching windshields being smashed. You name it.
There was a phone call that came into the council office and said there were problems on the bridge. We didn't know the extent of those problems, so we rushed and turned the TV on.
It was just awful because you were so powerless. There was nothing you could do.
I felt sick. I said, no, my God, why should this happen? Some people couldn't take it for all kinds of reasons, not be able to go to work, not being able to earn a living. I have to travel all around the place to go to work.
I was really scared.
Yes.
Scared for my grandchildren and scared for myself. And then thank God Mona is a good driver. Because when they were throwing stones, it was just bouncing off our car. And then it hit the guy behind us. So I was praying out loud, telling my grandchildren we covered the kids. And then my granddaughter's pregnant, and then she could go into labor. We were afraid.
I sat there during that time and thought about if I was going to tie my son in the seat next to me in a seat belt or hold him. And for some reason I said, no, I'm going to hold him. I felt more comfortable putting him on my lap and holding on to him than strapping him in, which I normally would have done, but this time I didn't. All you could see was like an avalanche of rocks. And it wasn't small rocks, it was large rocks. Rocks like this. And you could see what was happening to the cars in front of you. So we were terrified. And my sister-in-law was crying and shaking. And a rock hit the back of my sister-in-law's window, and the window shattered. We were covered in glass. It's something that I've suppressed, I think, until now.
What if that baby would have got hit with the stone that they threw?
I just kept praying and asking the Creator, please guide me as I drove. And as the stones were flying, I told my mother, the children, to bend down in a car and put blankets and pillows on them. I just drove and watched the car in front of me so that I don't hit him.
And every time I try to get try to put my head up and see what was going on, They just kept pushing me down. I didn't know why. And just heard a bunch of yelling and a bunch of things hitting the car. Then it just went really fast and stayed down. My grandmas were all scared and everything.
They were throwing stones and chairs, and so my daughter, I didn't think she was coming. I looked in my mirror, and she was there. She was all pale and white. Her window was all busted, her front window, her back window.
So it was all dusty. The farthest you could see was a little past the windshield of your car. And all I kept praying was the person in front of me wouldn't stop to put on her brakes because I was going to hit him. And all I could hear was bang, 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 the noise of these rocks. And my son crying to get the blanket off of him. And between that and my tears coming down my face, you couldn't see anything.
I was just staring out the window. And really, I could have been hit in the face. I was there with my brother in the back seat with me, and I just decided that whoever was there, they weren't going to see me hiding. They were going to see my face staring out at them, a strong face. And they weren't going to see me back down. 15 is, it's quite an age to be going through that. That was one of the things I knew I had to do. I felt like almost like I was taking care of the family in my father's place because I knew my mother was very nervous.
I was 6.5 years old. I was holding my brother with me. He was sitting on my lap, and my baby cousin was sitting right next to us in her car seat. All these people just started throwing rocks at us. I was screaming for my mom, but obviously she couldn't help because she was trying to drive us to where it was safe.
My father in the back moaning, he had such a whisper because he was so sick, and he just kept saying, "Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this?" And my mother had her head down and she was praying in Mohawk, Zewaneo, Zewaneo, help us, which means my God, help us.
I couldn't believe how many people were gathered there, how many people hated us so much that they weren't there just to throw rocks to scare us. These were rocks to kill us.
When I saw the rocks coming, I said, put your head down, put your head down. And my mother went down, my boys went down, and my older one just kept yelling, "We're okay, Ma, everybody's okay, don't worry." He said, "I got them covered." One was 12, 10, and 6. And I remember from the top, a lawn chair coming down, and I said, "I'm gonna lose control." My car just swerved all over the place, but somebody must have been watching over us because I didn't get in an accident. I got through it. And when we got into Villa Sal, that's when my son told me that he had gotten hit, that the windows were all busted in my car. He got hit on the shoulder. They had like glass all over them, little cuts. He had a lot on his legs, 2 little cuts, but the main part was his neck and shoulder that he got hit. He knew that I had to drive, and he didn't want me to panic.
As we got through what they call the Whiskey Trench, the crowd, the mob had gathered on top of the span. The trench, which is impassable, you can't yield, you can't turn. It's referred to as the Whiskey Trench because of the Seagram's distillers on either side of the highway. It was just before I went under the tunnel that I heard the rock go through the window, and I heard my father moan, and he fell, and I didn't know where it hit him. And I had to keep driving, and my mother was screaming, and she was trying to reach over to my dad in the back seat, and I was trying to reach over and try to hold the wheel. So what I did, I knew we were hit. I just didn't know how badly he was hit. Was he hitting the head? Was he hitting the, where? I couldn't tell. I was looking in the rearview mirror, but I couldn't see. And I went right to the Lachine General. I pulled into the emergency exit. He had been hit in the chest, right smack in the middle of the chest.
This is what they threw at my father. This is what hit him in the chest. I'm gonna keep this, and I'm gonna remember those faces. I can't believe racism this bad in this country in this time. I don't know what else to say.
There was a large laceration. The skin had been broken. There was glass everywhere, in his shirt, in his underwear, in his pants, socks. They were taking glass out for days after. They admitted him immediately, and they started to clean him up. They cleaned up the wound, they bandaged it. He was already sick to begin with. He was already weak. He was already depressed.
I couldn't believe people could be so cruel. I couldn't understand how men and women could stand there and throw rocks at other women, children, and elderly people.
It's hard to think how people could do that to you, you know, to anybody, you know. I would never think of trying to hurt anybody like that, you know. I saw a few faces, and I guess I'll never forget them. You try to forget, though. You have to live. You have to put it in the past. And I always remember a little girl and her mother standing at the corner, and they were throwing us kisses. And I remember saying, my God, not everybody is against us.
Over the bridge, through the clearing of the dust and everything, I see an elderly man with his 2 children standing there crying and waving at us and giving us thumbs up like you did it.
And I remember going by the lakeshore and saying, my God, there's people rollerblading and bicycling, and the life on the other side was so normal. I kept on saying to myself, do they know what we're going through across? You know, it's like 2 different worlds. You know, it was just so normal out there and peaceful, and here we were going through, you know, all these things where planes were flying over us and helicopters, and you know, every day you hear somebody, you know, they're gonna come in tonight, you know. And
the police let them throw rocks and bust their windows and everything.
Anybody hurt, you know?
As far as I know, I don't know yet.
The Indians all around, they're not gonna stand for another wounded knee. And we're gonna die for our rights.
All right, thank you.
I remember we were heading towards the Whiskey Trench and seeing things being tossed, and I wasn't sure what it was until our car was actually hit. I could remember grabbing a pillow that was on the side of Sarah and putting it over her, and I thought that she was safe. My daughter was hit. I was hit. And the windows were broken on the car, and we ventured through the tunnel. That was the only time I felt we were safe, and I pulled the pillow from on top of her. I looked down at her, and I saw blood. And I could feel myself that I had pain, but I couldn't exactly pinpoint where it was. And I looked at my babysitter. She was screaming, you know, and I didn't know exactly what to do. I just said, let's bring her to the hospital, you know, the LaSalle General. We went running in there, and they took her into emergency. They also brought me in. I had bruises. I was hit on my breast, my arm, my face. When they brought her in, it took an hour and a half, 2 hours for them to remove all the glass from her. It was stuck in her diaper, stuck in her shirt, everywhere. And to try to control a child, you can't. I was made to feel that I took the decision to leave. I put us in jeopardy. For me as a parent, I didn't feel I was able to do the job anymore.
I hope whoever shot stuff at us is very sorry. And I'm glad that I still have my mom and dad today. Because without my mom, I don't know what I'd do. And I'm glad I have my family.
speaking with the RCMP that there were supposed to be 100 other police officers on standby right at the site to ensure that there would be safe passage.
There was a lot of cops there. It was a bad scene, and no riot squad showed up.
We were victimized. And again, the violence was perpetrated on us. And again, you know, we were not the aggressors. We were not violent toward anybody. Why could they have not gone and physically stopped these people from picking up rocks and throwing them?
I saw the news that evening, and they were like, "Hey, we got the warriors." They got a warrior. They got a 76-year-old French-Canadian from Lachine. That's who they got. Joseph Armand Lacroix. He married my mother. My mother was Mohawk. He never really recovered from the incident. Even when we had to bring him back for checkups, he would always be very nervous, especially going over the bridge. He never wanted to talk about it. He died in 1994.
I should never have left. I would never leave again. I feel safe in Kahnawake, and I feel safe nowhere else but here. I'm proud to live in this community. Kahnawake to me shows how very strong and determined our people are to maintain our identity. I'm proud to be Mohawk. I think that no matter how the governments or the outside communities try, they could never beat that out of us. Not even with a rock.
If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die here. I am not gonna die from somebody throwing rocks at me. I'd rather die in my own house with my children and my family close by.
Questions were how did it happen and who planned it and what kind of planning took place to allow this. And it's like we were in such a position that we really couldn't answer those questions. If the people who planned it knew what was going to happen, they would have never done that. They would have never let the people across that bridge. They would have taken them in boat or any other way.
I was scared at many times when the women and the children were driving through. I seen people approaching with boulders and softball-sized rocks, whipping them through windows, and not really even caring what was on the other side of those windows in the automobile.
What was on those other?
Women and small children, innocent people, innocent.
That was the lowest point in my life when I seen. I would say my career as a peacekeeper and everyone else that was there that day. We had spoken to them, the elderly, telling them they're going to be safe, don't worry about anything. Little did we know they were in more danger than we were just by passing through that one little section. That day when I came back, finished work, I just came home. I went into my bedroom and closed the door. My wife and my family knew what happened, and they didn't say a word. They just let me be. I seen it on the news that night, and the hurt came back right away.
Everybody was crying, and I felt bad for my grandchildren and my parents, to go through that.
We went to a school in Dorval where they were taking names down, and it was there that we saw all the damage to the other cars. We were basically on our own once we went through that gauntlet. from there, we went to a hotel, stayed over a week, maybe 10 days, because we had started school.
My kids cried, my older one, every night. Let's go home, let's go home. He said, I don't even care if they stone us. I heard people saying, oh, you're on vacation. That was the most miserable 11 days of my life. Sitting in that hotel, you didn't know what was happening. We went out like to wash your clothes. People were staring at us, and and they couldn't miss you. Your car was all busted up.
There was one elderly man who, after the incident, suffered a heart attack and died the day after. So that was quite devastating as well.
I don't know what they think of us today, but it was out of our control, and they didn't take the means or the measures to prevent something like this. And I think they were well aware of it, because before that, when people were going across, there was incidents that were happening there. Anyways, these guys, when they went to court, they got a smack in the hand, and that was it.
13 personnes sont arrêtées, 11 adultes et 2 adolescents. Un homme est condamné à 10 week-ends consécutifs à la prison de Bordeaux. 10 autres sont remis en liberté conditionnelle et doivent payer des amendes de 100 à 1000 $ avec des sursis allant jusqu'à 2 ans. Les accusations contre les 2 adolescents sont retirées.
Vous, est-ce que vous avez tiré des roches?
Non, madame. Non, madame. J'ai été accusé d'avoir garoché des roches, mais ces charges-là ont été enlevées. Moi, j'ai été accusé d'avoir troublé la paix, finalement. 1 an plus tard.
C'était dans quel sens qu'ils trouvaient que vous aviez troublé la paix?
C'est parce que moi, évidemment, avec une grosse gueule, si vous voulez, je suis allé à la caméra, ils m'ont demandé ce que je pensais, puis je leur ai dit que si nous autres, on ne pouvait pas passer Saint-Bar, les autres, ils ne devraient pas passer ici d'autres. They blocked us from coming out or going through. So now we don't want them to come out.
Okay, within some time this evening, the Army's going to be going in. There are going to be women,
I don't care about the Army.
Children and elderly people.
That's too bad. It's not just real shame. I feel sorry for them. J'ai plaidé coupable. J'ai payé une amende de 1000 $. J'ai payé mon avocat. Puis ça a été fini. Ça n'a rien changé dans ma vie, puis ça n'a sûrement rien changé dans la vie des Autochtones. Les jeunes qu'ils ont garochés, les jeunes qu'ils ont lapidés, eux autres, ils n'ont jamais été en cours, ils n'ont jamais été... ça l'a fini. Là. Ça lui prenait un cabaye, je suppose, puis c'est à moi. Si on n'avait pas laissé passer les autos, on n'aurait pas garoché de roches. Puis pourquoi faire vouloir laisser sortir les femmes et les enfants sur la réserve? L'armée s'en allait pas pour tuer personne. C'était déjà décidé. C'était encore une faiblesse du gouvernement provincial, d'après moi, de les avoir laissés sortir.
As an athlete, one thing is that I gain respect from other athletes in other countries because of my performance levels.
Now with a full boat-length lead, nobody's going to catch the Canadians, I don't think. We have another gold medal for Canada. Yeah! Hugh Fisher and Alwyn Morris win the gold medal for Canada in the K2 1,000 meters. A lot of sacrifice by both of these fine Canadian athletes.
The friends that I met and the places that I've been and the respect that I was shown, I'll never forget.
Winners of the gold medals, the Olympic champions, the team from Canada.
And sharing this victory with the Kahnawake Reserve, with the Mohawk Indians in Canada, and with all the Native people in North America.
I feel really strong about being an athlete, being Native and being Canadian. And carrying it up here had very much significance for me. And I just hope my grandfather's very proud. Thank you.
Always had an easy time making friends and taking people for their word. And whether that's something that I learned as a young man growing up in Kahnawake or with my grandparents, it was part of me. So when I had made all these arrangements with the Sûreté and given certain assurances, I had to go on the word and my own deep feelings that this thing was going to be okay. When you relay that kind of message in your own terms, in your own words, and then see what happened, you lose something. You lose that faith, and it's so difficult to bring it back in terms of redeveloping it in retrospect, and that's always 2020. It would have been smarter to say, look, there's a big crowd here, it's not going to work. Go back to the community, we'll work out another way in which to do this at a later date. There was a lot of property damage. People did get hurt by the glass and the stones. Those things healed. And the fact that it happened here, in this country, suggests some very deep down problems from a social standpoint. How long is that wound going to take to heal? I don't know. Maybe not in my lifetime.
Maybe the people that agreed to it, who were in command and who Alwyn spoke to, maybe were sincere and did it in good faith. But again, it was another example of the orders not being followed by line officers.
To me, it was planned. It had to be planned for them to get everybody there, and all it takes is one person. Word gets around, and that's it. Everybody knows.
Il n'y a rien qui a changé depuis ce temps-là. C'est pas mieux que c'était, c'est pas pire. Parce que, encore à chaque fois qu'il y a quelque chose qu'ils n'aiment pas, c'est le pont, c'est le pont. En réalité, ce pont-là, c'est pas les Autochtones qui l'ont construit, c'est nous, les Québécois, qui l'ont construit, ce pont-là.
My brother worked on a bridge on the Kahnawake end. All Mohawks, no white men. The steel arrived from the sea to the south shore end of the bridge, came by rail, and it was trucked in from there. My late brother Louis had a team of horses, and they plowed the road same as they would plow on the farmland to break up the packed snow before the trucks could get through. They had an army of men from here to shovel the snow. And if your shovel was too small, they wouldn't hire you. You had to have a regular snow shovel before you went to work. The iron workers on the Mercier bridge itself, they were very, very tough. It was cold, windy. One whole week before Christmas, they didn't put in an hour's work. Being Christmas, the company turned around and paid them 1 hour each, every man, which wasn't very much, let me tell you, 75 cents. That was the hourly rate at the time. Those are the iron workers. We were only laborers working on the abutments. We were only making 30 cents an hour. That was big money then. In the springtime, I started work at the quarry, feeding the stone crusher. They used the crushed stone to build the roads. 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. That's the only time I ever worked close to home.
La construction du pont Honoré-Mercier commence en 1932. Les travaux se font hiver comme été. Le 12 juillet 1935, à l'inauguration du pont, l'Église et l'État sont bien représentés. En 1955, une ordonnance du Conseil privé accorde aux officiels de la voie maritime d'exproprier les Mohawks de leurs terres. Le conseil privé allait permettre la saisie de 1855 acres du territoire Mohawk. Quand les gens refusent de partir, un huissier accompagné de policiers viennent les expulser. Des tonnes de terre glaise tirées du canal sont déversées sur les terres arables de Kahnawake. À cause de la voie maritime, les ponts doivent être assez hauts pour permettre le passage des gros navires. Le pont Mercier doit être surélevé et un pont jumeau doit être construit. Le pont portant la voie ferrée doit être transformé en pont basculant. Et puis, ces ponts ont besoin de nouvelles voies d'accès, ce qui entraîne d'autres expropriations pour les Mohawks.
The other bridge was going up too, the railway bridge at the same time. The lift bridge, all Indians worked on the south shore. 5 men with the pusher, that's the erecting. And then the riveting gangs, 4 men to a crew. With the heaters, thick ring, and 2 riveters, they change out. You wouldn't think there were that many Indians in Kahnawake, would you?
Guy Wright, at first he wanted to call us midget gang. I almost had a fight with him. Then he changed it to a pony gang. What's a little better than a midget gang?
We always had an odd man. Sometimes it was my brother Harry and my younger brother, and then one time it was my oldest brother Howard. Well, I started over here in Montreal, about 15, 16 years old.
We used to move our scaffold. We used to move 6 by 8 needle beams. They call it needle beams. It's about, as wide as the bridge. That's how long the bridge is. You send a rope down with the planks, put it across once. So you got one plank across, then you go walk under, get the other planks in, you get all set. Then the other again, they come on down. Then they start driving rivets. But the hardest part is moving. Then it's high or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Where did you say that? I was going to go down.
I'm to try to get today. I'm going to get against what? So they're going to stop what? Go, you can go in and they can ride, you know. You have to what the car you away. Got to get chicken here, don't sir. I'm asking you, when are we going to go back to work?
Them days I got forever, I guess.
Yeah.
En 1959, la voie maritime est complétée et les Mohawks devront endurer pour toujours cette nouvelle intrusion dans leur vie. Kahnawake signifie « le long des rapides ». Mais de Kahnawake, on ne voit plus les rapides. Une grande partie des terres n'existe plus et la plage a disparu.
What do they call you, Adolf?
You'll see good demonstration of our toys. I'll fucking cut you in half.
Yeah. Why don't you come and try it? Hitler.
This is our land. We can't go anyplace else. We can't go to another country. This is our home. We have nowhere to go. They have their tanks, they have their barbed wire, they have rocket launchers, they have all the armaments, that you go to war with. You don't do that with Native people here who have taken care of their ancestors to make sure that they don't starve. But we can't take any more of their land taking from us. I mean, this is all we have left. They have the power in their hands to change history right now. They could change it by dealing with the land issue.
The armed forces' mandate was to search their vehicles, I guess, for weapons. You could have left the community a dozen times during the day, and you passed the same checkpoint, but looked at the same people, and you would have to go through the same process. If we were going to have to suffer that kind of indignity, then we in turn also would retaliate by our own plan of action, if you will, to create as much resistance as we could.
You're not paid to think, that's your problem.
It was demanded of me to open the trunk of my car, and I said no. I said, you open it. And we went back and forth for 15, 20 minutes or whatever it was, or half an hour. And I said, I'm not opening for you. You want to know what's in there? You open the damn thing, Here's the keys. And the officer wouldn't refuse, and we kept going. And finally, as silly as it sounds, we both held the key and we both opened the trunk.
What's his face, Joe?
I missed at least one meeting anyway that I was supposed to be involved in with several members of Parliament. But I did manage to get there later on in the day, but it's just an example of how difficult it was for us to do the things that we had to do during that time period.
Le 28 août, des réunions se tiennent en secret à l'hôtel Hilton de Dorval. Des leaders Mohawk et des représentants des gouvernements fédéral et provincial tentent de négocier une fin pacifique à l'impasse.
And I'll continue my discussions with the Confederacy.
Les barricades seraient démontées par l'armée de concert avec les Warriors. Le pont Mercier serait ouvert au public et le colonel Gagnon promet que l'armée n'entrerait pas dans la réserve une fois le pont ouvert. Sur le pont Mercier, les barricades disparaissent. Les travaux de réparation reprennent. Des spécialistes fouillent le pont et le fleuve pour s'assurer qu'il n'y a pas d'engin explosif.
One day I saw just a submarine coming through and I ran. I got my camera. When I took pictures, I saw it on the news and when they were interviewing and they said, no, there wasn't a submarine that came through. They, like the Indians are making it up. And the helicopters, they came right over here as maybe 6 feet off on top of the water. These helicopters were so loud, and I remember telling the kids, just ignore it or do your homework.
Lors d'une réunion avec les Warriors, le colonel Robin Gagnon annonce que ses ordres ont changé. L'armée se prépare à entrer dans la réserve de Kahnawake. Ironiquement, dans plusieurs batailles, les Mohawks ont été les alliés des Canadiens français et anglais pour défendre le Canada contre les États-Unis. En 1847, pour service rendu au Canada, 119 médailles ont été décernées à des Warriors indiens, dont 82 pour la bataille de la rivière de Chateauguay. Ces Warriors étaient des Abénaquis, des Algonquins, des Nipissing et des Iroquois. Même s'ils se sont fait voler leurs territoires ancestraux, les Mohawks ont participé à la défense du Canada contre ses ennemis et ont combattu dans les 2 guerres mondiales. Mais, à Kahnawake, l'armée avance et prend le pouvoir dans la Pinède. Les Warriors se réfugient au centre de désintoxication.
Basically, I would like you to contact your general or whoever it is and stop the advancement of these troops until, I'm just saying, he can issue the order immediately until we can resolve these things peacefully so they are not recognized in our Confederacy.
Hey, that's against the law.
L'armée se pointe avec ses véhicules blindés et fait une descente dans la longue maison.
Hey, so the longhouse, they raided the longhouse. The longhouse are in there right now. It's closed.
Yesterday, the very attack on one of our longhouses is disgusting. Would you like your synagogues, your churches attacked the way ours was yesterday?
Le pont est finalement ouvert au public le 6 septembre.
They were flying right over our houses. The Chinooks, the double blades, you know, those things are big. They're loud and they're like 30 feet off your roof. 3 or 4 of them just flying all over town. They all land on the island.
We were sitting here having lunch, and next thing you know, there was helicopters flying all over. Army men just flowing out of the helicopters. Then people from town just pulled up. There was people all over.
We were coming back from a meeting in Montreal, and I received a call on my cell phone that the army was at the island. We should get there as quickly as we could to try and calm things down. And there was a kind of a standoff on the small bridge that goes to the island between the mainland of Kahnawake and the quitte island. And there were a barbed wire that had been strung, and the armed forces were standing on the island itself, and people were demanding, you know, what are you doing there? And at first there was no response, but then one of the commanding officers came over and said that they had received evidence that there was weapons that were hidden on the island, and that they were searching the island to find out whether there was any truth to this information that they had received.
And even across the seaway, they had like 4 or 5, maybe 6 APCs. And they even had army tanks like across the river with their barrels pointing right at us.
What people saw was a row of soldiers with automatic weapons, gas masks. They had everything to their advantage to be able to overwhelm and overpower our people.
Some of them, I believe, didn't want to really be there, you know? It's like we're stuck on an island over here, and all these people are around us. But they had their guns. We didn't have no guns.
Are you prepared to let our people move out?
A couple of the soldiers that were there were also in the longhouse raid, and we recognized them back because they're the ones that we fought with, you know. And you could tell that they were very uncomfortable standing there. They're just waiting for orders, which was, what were they going to do? They weren't going to come into town.
If they would have made it over that bridge, there would have been martial law in town. And then it would have been even worse. You're going to have an APC parked outside my house? No way. Have army guys walking around our territory? No way. They wouldn't have lasted. It would have been like a big war, for sure.
The guys that were on the force even said it. If they come in, they're going to go with the people.
Hope you guys are proud Canadians.
That had to be one of the most bravest moments that I've ever seen during that time period and during my lifetime, of our people defending their territory against tremendous odds.
We are right, they're wrong. They're attacking us. They're proud, look at them all, you're all proud.
Then our town brought a dump truck to the other side of the bridge, blocked it. More people arrived. People were getting rowdy.
They were really close to the bridge, the army. They made a circle. They were throwing razor wire from the helicopters. And as fast as they were throwing it, the people were picking it up.
They start shooting at us right at the ground. Bunch of tear guys start going all over the place. People start running over bridge to get away from it. There's even women there that were pregnant. You can see that they're pregnant, but yet they still chew the gas at us.
More tear gas, fights. After that was fighting. Everybody was fighting. I myself was fighting.
It wasn't planned. People were there. We're just a big family. That's all. And we're going to stay that way. We're going to stay united. And we're going to be as strong as ever.
Two army men just threw me right over the bridge. And there was a big rock over here at the time. Landed on that, on my hip. Fled into the water. There was people all in here, washing their face, getting the tear gas so they could see again.
Get up, go! Hurry up!
Remember that teacher I had in high school? He was standing there, he's yelling, hold on, and I'm telling him, help me. Didn't know how to swim. I made it to the second pier, and a ship started passing. The current was pulling you in. Would have pulled me right up to the boat. Would have right underneath. This is where the elderly man, Albert Stock, his father, Sonny, was holding my head above the water to keep me from going under. They lifted me out of the water and put me onto the boat. And they drove off and put me in an ambulance. And finally I got to the hospital. And I had a fractured hip in 2 spots. So much I wanted to get back at them. And I still remember their faces. 2 of them especially. Sometimes they can't even walk. I mean, it's going to be a wound that's going to be there for the rest of my life.
Some had masks on, and then they would stand so long, and then another line would come in, and they would take their masks off. It was like they were always on duty. Shot us with tear gas and everything.
Once the air cleared, and then we noticed they were trying to cross the bridge, and that's when we started stoning them. We learned that from Whiskey Trench. And we learned that from what they did to our people going over the Mercier Bridge. Okay, they want us to learn people. That's all we got. They had their helmets and all their gear with them. And they were halfway across the bridge, but us, we didn't give up. We just kept worse, throwing more stones. They couldn't take it anymore, and they backed off.
People started pushing them back away from the bridge entrance. Then they were to march over the bridge through the community itself, just to show that, they had taken the community, so to speak. And the people's resistance prevented them from doing that.
And the women are the title holders to the land. And we'll never give that up. No amount of money can take the value of our land.
And all you had was people with their spirit and their strength, defending their territory, their village, the heart where their children are. That's what really this was all about.
What kept us, gave us the strength, was our ancestors, through our spirituality. And we're gonna be here forever. We were always in this area. We're not gonna go away. No one's gonna drive us out. We're gonna remain here. So the people out there should know that.
It was a very tense and dangerous situation. It almost erupted into what could have been, a tragic situation. One of the soldiers did get attacked and was beaten by some of our people.
Right across from the island, there's a hospital. There's a lot of old people in there. Imagine how they felt. Scared, and they hear gunshots going off.
To defend their comrade, one of the soldiers did fire one of the automatic weapons that he had into the air. And that created a situation in which then the rest of his colleagues then pointed their weapons at everybody. And to myself, I said, this is it, they're going to shoot. But cooler heads prevailed, and they didn't. You know, they managed to take their injured colleague and tend to his injuries. Our people were still quite insistent that they were going to leave, and they had no choice in the matter. The soldiers themselves, they were scared because they could see the anger and the hatred in our people for them being there. They had also raided the marina itself, and for whatever reason they seized alcohol and records and all kinds of things, which from what I know, from what I understand, have never been returned. And they asked for time. They said, look, we have X number of people on the island over here, and in order for us to evacuate, we will need to make several trips in order to pick everybody up. And some people said, we don't care how they get out of here, let them swim if they want.
We stayed there till nighttime, till they were ready to move out.
We stopped them from coming into our territory and sent them right back out. Same way they came in.
La confrontation dure 7 heures. L'armée ne peut pas entrer dans la ville comme elle l'avait planifié. Au coucher du soleil, les hélicoptères évacuent par pont aérien les 140 soldats qui étaient dans l'île.
The last Chinook that took off almost didn't even make it off the ground. That's how overloaded they were, and in a hurry to get out of here.
Le siège de 78 jours se termine en fin d'après-midi. Les soldats menottent tout le monde, à l'exception des enfants, et les mettent dans des autobus qui attendent là. On les conduit dans un camp de l'armée. À Farnham, ils restent enfermés dans les autobus jusqu'à 4 heures du matin. Puis, un par un, ils sont interrogés par l'armée et la police. Les avocats doivent discuter pendant des heures pour réussir à voir leurs clients. On leur permet enfin d'entrer dans la base, mais on leur interdit d'assister aux interrogations. Les Warriors sont libérés 9 jours plus tard, mais des accusations criminelles sont portées contre eux.
Spirit was high, confidence was always high up here. There was no other motive for anybody being here other than defending this land. And when it comes to land, Native people have very little left. They've either had it treated away, stolen away, or outwardly taken from them, including rights, just general disregard for our heritage. So nothing can shock a Native because it's already been done to them repeatedly throughout history.
No fear of going to jail. If I go to jail, I'll go to jail with my head high. I'll come out of jail with my head 10 times higher than that.
If you go to any Native territory throughout North America and you ask if we're guilty, we're not guilty. And that's what counts. As long as our people feel that we're innocent, then I'll go to jail. Because while I'm in jail, I know I'll have the support of all Aboriginal people throughout North America.
know what we all had went through over the years when we had to talk about this land. We know that this land we live on, this earth, is very pitiful now. A lot of hurt has been happening here, not only to us people, but to the land, to the territories. This is all our concern, all of us, different tribes on this earth. We all only have one heart. I give the Mohawk people, the 6 nations of this territory, all the respect that I could ever give them. I can't do enough for them, but to say I thank them for opening my eyes along with other nations across Canada. Limlin.
La crise est loin d'être terminée à Kahnawake. La police continue de harceler sans arrêt les gens pendant les 2 années qui suivent. When you came back to Kahnawake, was the army still here?
Oh yes. They gave us a hard time when we were coming back.
What happened?
Somewhere in Highway 30, we had to show all our stuff, what we brought back, all our birth certificate. And what helped us out was my birth certificate. It's written that my father was at a war, the First World War. That's the year I was born, no? And then the provincial police, he says, okay, he says, you can go. We went maybe from here to across the seaway. There was another bunch that we had to stop there. We had to report again that, we were coming home. Again, we were checked below the Mercier bridge. Again, there was another bunch. And there was about 5 or 6 cars behind us. We were all stopped. We had to get out, check what we had in there. And once we got in Kahnawake, well, I made the sign of the cross, and I thank God that I was back home.
Every time you go out of town, they harass you. They pull you over, they check your trunk, they check underneath your seats. Even the cops, if your tire's low, they give you a ticket for that. And they search you, your ID, your car, everything. Like 2 minutes later, you're going back out, they know it's you, they search you, they do it again. It was just harassment. They had no business here after that. If you're a Mohawk, you're in trouble.
The primary law enforcement agency in the territory of Kahnawake is the peacekeepers.
One evening we were returning from St. Constant, where we had our motor vehicle repaired, and Assistant Chief White and myself had come into the first checkpoint within the reserve, and we stopped by the military police and asked to step out of our vehicles, asked to put our hands over our head, and we were advised we were placed under arrest for possession of an unregistered, restricted weapon. We've been carrying firearms as a law enforcement agency within Kahnawake for approximately 20 years, and we've never had a problem until Monday.
The peacekeepers are going to continue to function as peace officers in the community of Kahnawake. They're going to continue to patrol in the community of Kahnawake. They're going to continue to apprehend offenders in the community of Kahnawake, both Indian and non-Indian. Anybody who comes into the community who thinks they can commit a criminal infraction and get away with it because of this possibility of charges are sorely wrong. I understand that the decision to investigate the possibility of charges was made by the provincial police.
I hope the CERT-C decides to be reasonable about this, because it can have a reciprocal effect.
It is a very serious problem because, whenever they want to do something in Kahnawake, they feel they can come and they don't have to consult. We have a legitimate police agreement with the federal government and provincial government that says otherwise. I think at that time we probably were the most heavily policed community you'd find anywhere in North America.
We were living in Chateauguay, and I was the president of the school committee of St. Willibrod School.
And they came out with the saying that we better not let the Mohawk children come back right away because it's not safe for them. And I decided to speak out, which I did. And there was a meeting of the school board. We were in the French board at the time. And I went prepared with 2 speeches, one in French and one in English. And I didn't even get a chance to start. The hatred was fierce in the room. People were attacking the Gazette reporter. They threw his phone across the room. I felt very threatened, and I said, let's get out of here. I know hatred is evil, and I don't care if it comes out of a white man, a red man, a black man. It affects us.
I kept them in French school, but I sent them to Lachine because there was just too much trouble in Chateauguay, and it was, they started late. They didn't let them start at the beginning of the school year. They had a corn party the first day, but our children weren't invited. They were thinking of protecting our children. And because the English teacher asked why, she says, you're having a corn party, she says, and it was the Indians that gave you corn, and she says, all the Indian children are not in school.
Un homme de Montréal, M. Pluie, il ne faut pas s'étonner de ce qui se passe aujourd'hui. Vous avez tellement tapé sur la tête des Autochtones de Kahnawake. Ben bon pour vous. Eh bien, merci.
Moi, je suis très sceptique. Je ne crois pas à la réunification des 2 communautés. Eux nous demandent de tout oublier, mais eux oublient pas leur passé. Alors pourquoi moi, je devrais oublier mon passé, puis les autres continuent? Mais il reste qu'il y a eu un mort d'homme, il y en a qui ont perdu leur emploi. Ça crée beaucoup de grabuge. Et moi, je suis pas prête d'oublier. Ils disent qu'ils veulent garder leurs coutumes. Oui, je suis bien d'accord. Mais je ne crois pas qu'ils peuvent s'intégrer à nous comme...
Mais on ne parle pas de s'intégrer, on parle de se fréquenter quelque peu.
Oui, mais je ne crois pas à ça, moi, du tout. C'est qu'il y a quelque chose en dessous de ça. Puis ça, là, je ne crois pas à leur honnêteté, malgré que je veux bien, mais j'ai beaucoup de misère avec ça.
Vous n'avez pas de pardon facile, madame?
Ben, j'étais une qui avait monté aux barricades, alors j'ai pas le pardon facile, non.
Ah oui, il y a une demoiselle qui veut vous parler.
On ne dit pas de l'oublier, parce que nous autres aussi, on n'est pas capable de l'oublier. Mais on dit, faut continuer. Faut continuer, faut vivre ensemble, on n'a pas de choix. On reste dans la même place. On partage les mêmes terrains. On va partager.
Mademoiselle, pourquoi 98 et pas en 90 à ce moment-là?
I went to summer drama camp and we learned how to make like a box. It's like a stage. This is my school, St. Willibrod. This is our schoolyard, and we're doing the round dance to 4 people. And this is me. There's a few kids in my class. Amy, Amanda, and Julie. They were interested in Indians, and I showed them the round dance. And there's about 3 Indians in our class, and we do a few dances. And then James and them, James, Danny, and Brock, they make fun of us because it's different.
So, Heavenly Father, as this smoke rises, we ask you to send your Holy Spirit, your great Spirit, to look upon and bless it. Purify the fire, and purify this feather that we will be using tonight as we share one another. Purify the circle to strike out against another.
I participate in a few healing circles.
To strike out at you, Grandfather, Great Spirit, Jesus Christ, Gishi Manitou, and all the many names that
I went to a sweat lodge. I'm still in search, but I've come a long way from where I was.
That summer that many of us will remember in different ways, it is good to recall it. Because like any healing, when we're wounded, and unless the wound is cleansed deeply and profoundly, the infection will continue to fester.
And this circle is really working, I think, Ron, because we've all come together and said it with the non-native brothers and sisters, and we're all working together and leaving our hurts here.
My main attitude was that of indifference, making jokes about the warriors and about the masks and all this. And as men generally do, we like to kid and make jokes about things we don't understand and things over which we have no control. And it was that ignorance and that lack of control and that was really controlling us. We got to meet these people, and they became friends. They became brothers. We needed healing, the healing of our indifference, because we started to care.
I had in my classes so many children from Kahnawake. I felt after the crisis was over, I felt it was important to do something. And if I could help build bridges of reconciliation between Chattagee and Kahnawake, then that was what I wanted to do. And I enjoyed a feeling of family here in this healing circle that I had never known.
We didn't open many stores in 1990, 91, 92, 93. It was the lowest development years in the province. We had a crisis then, but it's improving now. The majority of the citizens of Chattagee are pleased with what's going on between Chattagee and Kahnawake.
There was a long period of time before I even wanted to go back and give any of my business or associate with anything to do with Chattagee. So even now, it's a very thin layer of tolerance that's still there, and probably you peel that back if there was any kind of a situation was to occur very quickly, that thing would flare back up. They say time heals things. Yes, it does to a certain extent, but I think the underlying problems haven't been addressed there.
Now, had not the Mohawk land been as important, then we would have not done that. As a result of it, our community has been economically devastated.
So the first time I went back, which was to actually go and shop there, was maybe a year later. And I felt very uncomfortable. I thought people were looking at me, you know. I guess we'll never forget it. It'll always be there.
One time I went at Zeller's. Oh, these people, I don't care, les sauvages. Hey, then my daughter Mona, she says, we're not savages, she says. It's the people that throw stones at my mother. They're the savages. So anyways, that stopped. The manager, I think, came and he told them to stop. So we didn't even buy nothing that day. We came back out and we went home.
I find people are still staring at you.
Yeah, but look at this one. You always like big glasses.
Let me check further down. I try to remember the ones that helped.
If we want to improve relations, we can't look back all the time. We have to look forward. We may not forget, but we have the obligation to forgive on both sides.
I know people like to think about forgive and forget, you know, and let's not bring up the past. Whether it's good or bad, had a beginning somewhere. There's a cause for it. It's always necessary to look back in time, what has created a situation, why are people doing things at that point, why are there difficulties, why is it so difficult to live in the province of Quebec, you know, and why is it that much more difficult for Native people, and in this instance, Mohawk people, Kahnawake, to have a relationship with their neighbors.
The land issue is something beyond my capacity, or I understand the situation, but I cannot resolve it.
We look at the world around us, and there's not many great things to look at. You know, we see disparity, wars going on, oppression, violation of human rights. There's a lot of negativity. It's very rewarding because you see them developing physically, you see them developing spiritually, and you see them developing mentally. And when you see a being develop like that, it's pretty hard to intimidate them, to make them walk off a good path.
Beautiful.
For our future generations, well, we got to think of our little kids that are growing up, are coming up, and, you know, to take care of whatever we have left on the reserve.
The 78 days that we were home on the land, the peace that was there, just to be unified, will help us to always remember the 7 generations that follows and the unborn that's coming yet. In our language, they would turn around and say, Dadi Gusadaje. Their faces are not here, they're coming though. So Mother Earth gave us life, just like a woman will give life. And each generation anew will bring happiness and joy, and that will be the most beautiful that we can live. But we need to work together. Not just my people, but the people of the world.
We don't have to go to the Canadian government and ask for our sovereignty. That we don't have to go to the Canadian government and ask for our rights to be self-determining. We have those. They are inside of our hearts. They are in our beliefs. We have to ensure that those rights continue to exist into the future so that our children do not have to go through that kind of struggle, so that they will enjoy the peace and the respect and the honor of being Ongwehome. So I asked you, all of you, to keep your commitment strong, to keep your prayers strong. And I asked all of you to begin to work in your communities, to begin building your nations, build your government, build your people. Demonstrate that respect and honor that these people had made a commitment over 75 days. Always remember them.
Tous les peuples autochtones du Canada ont toujours eu à lutter pour faire respecter et reconnaître les traités par le gouvernement et les autres citoyens. Leur histoire n'est qu'une suite de trahisons et de pertes. La résistance des Mohawks de Kahnawake et de Kahnawake en 1990 n'a pas eu lieu en vain. Des négociations sur les droits territoriaux et sur l'autogestion sont en cours entre le gouvernement fédéral et plusieurs nations à la grandeur du pays. Cette fois-ci, les peuples autochtones doivent s'assurer que tout accord sera le meilleur, non seulement pour le présent, mais aussi pour les générations futures.